Three, two, one. Welcome to the SaaS Pulse Show. My name is Michael Bertoni, and I'm the founder and CEO of SaaS Talent. And I am so excited today. I don't know if you say Oregoni. He's Oregon City, right? Greg Lind. He is the CEO co-founder of Buildly. He also has another company called Open Build, right? So he's doubly busy. He's been doing this for almost 5 years. He has a software architecture as a service product. He helps you build products, helps you build APIs, ship products faster, build products faster. He's going to tell you all about this, and really excited to have you on here, Greg.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It's an exciting idea, and I'm really looking forward to talking more about this. So yeah, very cool.
Yeah, no, super pumped. So the first thing I always like to start with, Greg, is the superhero backstory, right? So love the superhero backstory. Every superhero. I am a Superman fan.
Okay.
But what is your background? Just
Yeah,
how did your background get you to where you are today?
sure.
How did you come to Buildly? How did you come to Open Build?
Yeah, so it's a long story, but I'll give you the short version. In college, I was a sort of a double major. I was a jazz percussion major and music. But I also was, at that time, they didn't have computer science exactly. It was business information systems and software.
Right.
So I was doing that at the same time. My my music career and my software career sort of went in different directions initially.
Mm-hmm.
Started off doing a lot more music, and then came back to it as I got a little bit older and early '90s, into the late '90s. Got really into startups at that time, and the idea of sort of, I guess it was the bubble and really Web 1.0, if you want to call it that.
Mm-hmm.
And then as the bubble burst, went into government work
Mm-hmm.
and went into a couple of different things on around nonprofits. That's when I started Open Build early on in that process, really helping to build software for government agencies initially. And then we translated that into actually doing a sort of a software consultancy for small businesses in different areas that had difficult political situations or different areas. So I was working with an organization called Mercy Corps at the time and traveling all over the world. Started an open source project at that point called Tola Data. That shifted over to sort of becoming its own thing, spinning out from there, and then moving to Berlin. From there, started another startup called Humanitech, where we built, first we sold Tola Data essentially to them, and then Humanitech became our next thing. And then from there, spent a couple years in Berlin building up Humanitech, then moved back to the US in New York and built Buildly. And there, got the thumbs up from the camera.
Yeah, yeah, that
Um,
is the best. The thumbs up.
yeah. And so, yeah, so starting off Buildly in New York, it was initially an open source project, just focused on cloud native software. Like you said, it was really about APIs and gateways and building out a good structure, well crafted software. And then the pandemic hit.
Mm-hmm.
Moved back to Portland, and started to work on what is now our AI product management tool called Buildly Insights. And that's how we sort of got started into the whole, uh, you know, Buildly AI, Buildly product process.
Yeah, so Buildly AI. So obviously AI, you can't walk 5 steps without hearing the word AI.
Yeah.
So what inspired you? What would you say was your inspiration behind the company? So Build
Yeah.
AI, Buildly, right? I think you had a
Mm.
platform Buildly, then it sounds like you had a product, you're having products.
Yeah.
What was the inspiration?
Well, I think initially it was a lot of it came out of the shift from the open source project to product management as we were looking at the issues that we were dealing with remote work.
Hmm.
I think a lot of companies that we started to work with and we're building, one of them was early on when we were in Brooklyn, a company called Transparent Path that we still work with is one of our main enterprise customers. This conversation between the product team and the software team,
Mhm.
there was always these breaks in communication. They had difficulties with the long distance. And we'd seen this before, of course, when I was working overseas and working with companies in the US. And I thought, well, how do we fix this? And we came up with a process. Actually, eventually wrote a book about it that we just released, called Radical Therapy for Software Teams. And it's really just about our process that we've built that's now in Buildly. And
Okay.
it's about fixing the communication gaps, being more transparent, letting both the business side and the software side work together better. And that's really, I think, what inspired us. We saw that problem and we saw an easy way to fix it, built a process, and then we built an AI tool around it. And now we've built a way for other people to use that and create their own AIs, that will work for their products. So it's really exciting, and I think a lot of people are benefiting from the ideas around AI and large language models, but they aren't really focusing it on their products and their tools. They're either building something for their customers, or they're building something or using it just as a general user. In this case, we're actually helping you build something that's translated around your product.
No, it's so awesome. Like as you're talking, Greg, I'm just letting you know your energy is saying is to me is saying I could build software with this guy. Like literally after talking, like you're like I could build software with this guy. Like literally because
Oh,
that's what you do. Like literally like I build software for people.
yeah,
But but
that's the idea.
you had mentioned in our pregame you have three pillars,
Yeah,
right? So give the audience your elevator pitch, right? So
yeah.
what's the product, these three pillars, what's the value proposition?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, it's a little bit of what we talked about already. The first pillar is really where we help startups, SMBs, even enterprise companies document their software product,
Mm-hmm.
usually using their language, right? Business language. And then we translate that idea into business, from the business requirements into technical documentation.
Mm-hmm.
That includes features that we suggest via the AI tool that's been trained on our data,
Mm-hmm.
as well as the architecture, the budgets for that particular process, releases, team size, and more.
Nice.
And then we take that. So that's the first sort of pillar. And then the second pillar is letting them share that idea via with the marketplace of development agencies that we've built up over the years that have technical co-founders as well as and third-party partners built around anything from financing your startup or your business idea up to
Mm,
all the way up until like finding the actual software developer or technical co-founder to build it for you.
love it.
And we let you build it in that documentation and then share it securely and track it.
Mm,
And then from there, once you've found, if you've decided you want to build this thing, we have a way for you to then start building with our release process and our having our development teams use our open source and component driven architecture. They can do it really fast. It competes with, I would say it competes with the no code or low code tools and
mhm.
how fast you can do it and
Yeah.
get a prototype out the door, start fundraising or even building, or if you're, already an organization that has that money and just need the product, you can
Right.
get all the way to proof of concept all the way to MVP in just a couple of months, really speeding up that process and making it something that you own. And now you manage the release process, you get an idea for how to build it moving forward. You get your own AI built
Mm,
around your product, and then that can be your chatbot with your customers, or it can be your sort of product assistant, so to speak, or even a product manager in some ways. But definitely helping to remove a lot of those obstacles, speed up and clean up the whole process, and give you a better overall feeling around building the software product from the very beginning.
no, it's awesome. I mean, being a software development, so before I started my company, I basically sold software development, I sold tools, huge market, right? So
Yeah.
what I'm thinking in my mind is who's your ICP, who's your ideal customer profile? You had mentioned to me startups, but then you'd mentioned to me SMBs, but who are you really focused on helping? Like, so who would you say I always like to say in the bullseye, like who's
Yeah.
the ideal customer so people listening to this can help Greg.
Yeah, well, I think in the end, it's really product managers at any level, but
Hmm.
enterprise especially, we can help as well by building up a portfolio of products that you can manage in one place. But product managers, you when you work with product managers as a software developer and as a product manager, having to deal with those software developers sometimes can be overwhelming. It feels
Yeah.
like they speak another language sometimes, or that they're doing magic that you don't understand, and so that trust is hard to build. And I think that's who we're helping, both the development and the product manager, but really more than anything, it's helping the product manager understand the process a little bit better, making it easier,
Hmm.
and understand those technical ideas and how to manage them and communicate that process back and forth without feeling like you're disrupting the developers from their work.
Yeah, what I'm feeling like next question around differentiation and how you separate. I mean, I'm hearing kind of more parts and pieces to like a no code platform, right? So you're like giving people a little bit more, but explain that. What are some competitors? You said no code platforms, but what sets you apart from these other no code platforms?
Yeah.
Why why Buildly, Greg?
Well, I think if you look at most no code platforms, you don't actually end up owning anything out of that other
Hmm.
than maybe the data. And sometimes even that's hard to get out of those.
Right.
What you do end up with is a platform that maybe will grow with you a little bit, but the reality is it's built around making a very specific proof of concept more than anything else.
Right.
And what we're helping you do is even if you've started down that road, you can migrate to a real platform with us that will allow you to build in the cloud and scale with your business as opposed to limiting yourself by what that particular provider can give you. Our biggest, especially from no code and low code tools. But I think outside of that, other than the data that we've put together that trains our AI and manages our machine learning processes, I think
Mhm.
the other thing that we provide is really a way to sort of fix that communication gap when you're using Trello, let's say, for your product management and backlog, and your team is using GitHub or Jira on the other side. A lot of times you have to buy two licenses to get access to that, especially if it's GitHub and Trello, for example. We provide the API integration directly so that you have one tool, one place to go. You don't have to learn GitHub or go over to GitHub as a product manager. And as a software developer, you can stay in GitHub and not have to worry about Trello. And you see one place where all of your features are being documented, issues are being broken down into multiple repositories, all managed in one tool, one dashboard, so you can see all the communication in one place and really sort of plan out your releases with the help of the AI and really move things much faster and much easier than you have before.
Don't you just want to build software with Greg? I mean, like when he like I'm just saying when you're talking, I'm like, God, I trust this guy. Like, no, I mean, because I work with so many people who build software. So no,
Yeah,
it's great. No, it's great. I love what you're doing because you're giving people a whole kit to do it. Like I've always said, where's the standard operating procedure with how to do this, right? Like it's there's thousands of them. It's like, oh yeah,
yeah,
it's like where's the one standard operating procedure that says, all right, this is how you build software. Like it's like that's one of the challenges. Like we build a building, right? There's like a standard operating procedure to do that. How do we build
yeah,
software? Oh, there's 1,000 ways to build software. Like let's do it 1,000 ways. But you're helping with that. It's amazing. It's a huge challenge.
yeah,
But
for sure.
what are some of the biggest challenges? So you've been in business almost 5 years with Buildly. What have been some of the biggest challenges that you faced overcome to grow your business?
Yeah. Well, I think initially, starting off, especially right near the beginning of the pandemic,
Mm,
one of the biggest things that we had was figuring out a strategy for how to communicate with the team if they were spread out everywhere.
right.
And I think that we solved pretty quickly just by having done that so much before, when I was traveling around the world with Mercy Corps and Open Build and Tola Data.
Mm,
But I think the outside of that, I think one of the things that we really ran into early on was, and I think this is something that you understand really well, is finding the right developers that would get the work done for us. And also making sure that that process and that they were being treated and heard in that process, right? So having a process that isolates your software team from your business team and not allowing that communication, that's really the biggest challenge that we saw early on. And that's the thing that we fixed really quickly by
Hmm.
building out this insights process. As soon as we started to see this, the process initially was really what helped us in adapting to making sure that all the voices were heard, right? A junior developer all the way up to a senior developer should have the opportunity to communicate into that process and show what they're thinking. New ideas don't just come from senior and leadership, right? They come from the ground up. And so I think that's what really, that was one of the biggest problems that we wanted to solve for ourselves as well as our customers.
Yeah, I'm seeing it big time right now. I mean, the engineers on our team are super vocal and they want to be heard.
Yeah,
Like back in the past, maybe when you and I started doing this, people were do what you're told. Now it's
yeah,
like it doesn't work like that anymore, right?
no,
If you just do what you're told, people will leave. They'll be like, "Oh,
right.
see you later. I'll do what I'll work over here." So that's great. I love that you're doing that because everybody wants to be heard. I totally get that.
It's
So that kind of
retaining
brings,
talent too. Yeah,
yeah, I know it is like the newer generation of younger engineers. They want to be heard. They want a voice. If they aren't, they'll leave. Like that's
well, to
big
be
takeaway.
fair, I think you and I wanted that probably too. We just didn't know we could ask for it. Like
Exactly.
it just didn't seem possible. But now it is, and I think it's great. And I think it's what's even better is that a lot of our ideas come from the team, right? It's
Mhm.
I'm not building this in a vacuum in any way. A lot of this comes from people that are very junior as well, just learning, but coming at it with a new idea and a new perspective.
I love it. So that kind of brings me into the next question was how do you approach in your company talent, right? What do you look for? What are the key things that you're looking for in talent and recruiting for your organization?
Yeah, well, I think initially, when we were small, and we're still very small, it was mostly through our network. We had recruited a lot of people previously, and so we were growing through that process. But as we were going out, even before that, in previous startups, I think the thing that I always looked for was not, it wasn't necessarily about education, and it wasn't, and I think even less so now.
Mm-hmm.
It's more just about the desire to learn, and you can see that even when you see a founder that you want to work with in a startup. You look at their background, you can look at their LinkedIn profiles, and how often were they shifting jobs? How often were they and when you can ask that question of why did you shift a job? Why did you go from one company to the next to the next? And a lot of times it's just they weren't being challenged, they weren't being heard, and they felt like they needed to go to that next level in order to take, that's the superstar versus the rock star approach, right? You want to have a balance of superstars that are just pushing and always trying to get to that next level, as well as those rock stars that are just steady and will always get the task done, and you can depend on. So I think when you're recruiting, you want to first think about the team, right?
Yep.
What kind of team do you want to build? Do you have a superstar already and you need a couple of rock stars? Or maybe it's the other way around. And how do you want it to go? And where do you want them to take you? Where do you want them to go? And I think if you think of it that way, I think it's much easier to recruit. It's much easier to sort of build a team and then just find those niches, those holes, then fill those as quickly as possible.
Yeah, we are so on the same page. So you just said desire to learn. I wrote that down. We have this entrepreneurial mindset that we look for. We have this, I call it professional proactivity,
Yeah,
professional and proactive.
that's
I'm
great.
professional and proactive. It's really great. Like, so meaning you're always professional, but you're always waking up and saying, how can I do better for my customer? How can I do better for my customer? Let me bring an idea to Greg. How can I do better?
Yeah,
Like, so we're always looking for that. So last
yeah,
question. This has been great. Last
yeah.
question. What are the two or three biggest pieces of advice that you would give other startup founders? You're obviously a startup guy, like you've done a bunch of startups, you've traveled the world. I mean, I think Greg, anybody listening to this, I think Greg is a great mentor. Like I could see, obviously like he builds software for people. Like, so he would be a great mentor. He's traveled the world. He's had startups. So tell us the 2 or 3 biggest pieces of advice that you would give other startup founders.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I appreciate that. And I think, I mean, the reality is everybody has their own approach, and I think they need to listen to themselves and do what they love, do that thing that, it's not always a super goal that you want to find. It's like some big, dream that you want to build. It's just you want to find that thing that's yours, that's a problem that you've seen before and you want to fix that problem. Then you become that expert on how to do that. I think that's where you really want to focus, but you also want to try not to go alone, right? I
Right.
think if you can find a good founding team, or at least a team that covers your deficiencies and makes you stronger as a group, but don't be afraid to admit that you have those. Be transparent about where you lack and what you need when you're building a team. And I think then as you start growing, and instead of just looking at your own thoughts and your own product idea, right? That proof of concept is usually your dream. That's the thing that you thought of. That's the thing that you want to fix. But then MVP, that thing that you're going to put out in the market, that needs to be things that your users need, right? You need to talk to them and your team and have that conversation. And that, I think that's the 2 best pieces of advice I can give to anybody is build that thing that you want, but then go to your users almost immediately and ask and figure out who they are first, and then ask them, what is it that you need? What's that problem that you need to solve? And can we do that with this? Don't lead them there, but find a way to get to that question and then get that answer.
So great, Greg. So great. I actually have another comment. So I don't know if Greg wants to be Jobs or Wozniak, but if I was Jobs, he'd be my Wozniak. That's what I'm saying. Like if you're watching this right now, if I was Jobs, but he might say to me, Mike, no, I want to be Steve Jobs, right? And but but that's what I'm thinking right now. Like I have a guy in my team. Like I'm like, you're my Wozniak, man. You're my brain behind.
Yeah.
But and most founders need are they they have that vision, they have that
Yeah.
thing. They're like, but do they really know how
You
to
do
build?
need that.
Do they know how to build the thing?
Yeah.
Maybe
That
not,
you do
right?
need that. Yeah, I agree. I like to see developers go out and build their own thing because they more often than not they don't get that opportunity to be the CEO and to build that thing, which is I feel very grateful to have that opportunity and have the team around me that's let me do that. But I think, yeah, you have to find that counterpart, whether it's a Jobs or a Wozniak or a Gates and an Allen. I think you find that person not necessarily because they fill the gaps in the things that but because you trust them and you can build out something together. And I think that's the real goal, right? Is to find that person that can do that for you.
It's awesome. So Greg, stick around here. We're gonna shut it down. This has been a great show.
Yeah.
Really easy to talk to Greg. So Greg, thanks a lot for joining the SaaS Pulse show, and I'm looking forward to following your career.
All right. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.